quick intro before I jump in. So I've been in product management for about 7 or 8 years in tech mainly. Um, and then also worked at Innovate UK for a couple of years. So I'd heard of grants before then, but not really dived too much into the ecosystem. And then when I worked at Innovate, um, a lot of the companies I worked with were either grant beneficiaries or I was helping companies gear up for funding, and a lot of that was grants as well as private equity. So I've won quite a few awards for different companies, and I've won three personally. I've applied for about five or six and got a decent hit rate for my own projects. I left that gig because I actually won an investor partnership scheme. So it was a decent amount of money, and I left that role, and now I'm working on my startup full time. And I occasionally consult with Business Surrey and the IOD in the funding and grant space as well. And yeah, good to meet you all. Nice bit of passion from Nick this morning. I was going to ask actually if you wanted to do the talk because I really like the passion you had the time what you were talking about. But I'll go ahead and start sharing the screen. This down here. Okay, so can you guys see this presentation here?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So, one of my pet peeves is just talking at people for about half an hour with little to no interactivity. So, I have put this together at a pinch, but I thought it would be really good just before we dig in, just to understand a little bit more about who you people are and what your business is. So, it would be really good if all of you would just drop a quick one-liner in the chat, just name of business and a quick sentence, so quick value proposition about what you do. So I know, Ollie, I don't want to take the words out of your mouth, but Startup to Stand Up is a community for founders, right? Or something like this. So Grant Hero is an AI-powered grant writing tool for Innovate UK applications. So that would be really great just to see who you guys are and what you're working on. So I can check that as we go through. I don't want to delay too much. I do have a hard stop around 10 past, but the presentation is running about 15-20 minutes, and then there's some chance for some questions at the end, but it's really good to meet you all once again. So I've covered that bit, which is nice, so we can skip through that pretty sharpish. Yeah, as I say, worked in product, mainly in software, and then moved into helping out with grants at Innovate UK, along with other bits and pieces. And now I do a bit of consulting, but I'm primarily on my ventures, which are a Grant Hero and also a company called Pinpoint. So today I just want to give a very quick overview of Innovate UK, what the landscape is and what they invest in. Secondly, I'd like to go on to talk about eligibility and how how to know if your company is eligible for grants and if you're going to be a good fit for the sort of sectors they like to invest in. And then last but not least, I've got a few tips about what you can do to boost your chances of success. Time is precious, so if any of you realize halfway through that this is not for my business, no sweat if you decide to drop, because Innovate UK is my speciality, and they do have quite they have a particular focus, right, as a lot of grant bodies do. So if you decide, look, this isn't for me, no worries if you've got a drop and if you've got something more important to do. As a founder, I would totally understand. So what is Innovate UK? So just quick overview of the landscape and ultimately where the money comes from. So tracing it back from down here to the right-hand side, it sits within UKRI, which is UK Research and Innovation, and that sits within a government department, which used to be DBEIS, and now it's Department for Science, Innovation and Technology. So these guys broke up, well, demerged, I guess, a couple of years ago. So they created the DSIT, and ultimately that's where the money comes from. So this is useful just to understand, what kind of projects they're going to be interested in, right? Because it is the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology that's ultimately funding it. This isn't comprehensive. The UK Modern Industrial Strategy for the next 10 years was actually released a couple of weeks ago. So I'm sure there's a TLDR version you can get of that. you could take the core document, put it into ChatGPT and get some insights. But the vast majority of what is in that modern industrial strategy is here. These are just under larger umbrellas. But we've got net zero, so anything in sustainability, decarbonisation, circular economy, energy, battery power, all of that stuff. Basically, the government wants us to hit net zero targets, so anything that helps us move towards that. Healthcare could be, again, anything innovative in this space. This isn't my sector really, but diagnostics, therapeutics, patient healthcare systems, anything like that. Anything that can kind of streamline and optimize the NHS is a big win. Creative is a big ecosystem as well. So in there you could have arts, film, gaming, TV, media, design. Pinpoint is another project I'm working on, which is a user research tool. And the last competition we won from Innovate for that was using the angle of designers using the tool. So product designers will use it to put interviews in the tool, and we use AI to extract all the insights. So that was the angle we took when it comes to that, which is nice because designers do use it. So we have other customer segments as well. And then technology it is also a big one. So I have a specific slide just for tech. Got a lot of digital stuff here. So AI, ML, blockchain, virtual reality, etc. Different types of technologies, right? Again, this is more my field, not these guys, but we do a lot in manufacturing in the UK, engineering, biology, robotics, smart machines, etc. So this just gives you a flavour of what kind of things they're typically interested in. As I say, it's not comprehensive, but that's a good overview of the key sectors. And the vast majority of competitions you'll see will be focused on those areas. Benefits of funding, mainly financial, in that it's non-repayable, non-dilutive, so you don't have to give any shares or equity away. And it is really good for mitigating risky R&D that most angels or VCs wouldn't be interested in. And it can be leveraged for further funding, and it's also good to boost credibility. It can be quite hard to win a competition, so it's a nice badge of approval if you get funded. So how it works in practice, I'll give you an example from Pinpoint. This was an industrial research project. I'll explain more about what that is shortly, but basically means that it's 70% funded. So if we spend 54k in a quarter, we get 38 back. So it gives a net cost of business of 16k, and that's primarily on labour for us at the moment, but we have some subcontractor costs, design, research and other bits and pieces. It doesn't typically cover any kind of marketing or commercial costs. These are R&D focused grants, so anything that is focused on R&D would be eligible. And the other good thing, I don't cover it in this, but obviously I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of R&D tax credit, so that can be another win in that, there's normally a kind of direct parallel for R&D claims that you can claim from doing this. There is a different rate, but yeah, it's R&D focused in terms of the nature of expenditure. So we'll take a quick pause there. It would be good in the chat. I'll stop and ask, see if anyone's got any questions before moving on. Be good just to go back to this, just so I can get a quick overview of how you guys look at the companies that you're building. Are there any specific sectors here that land with people? So are you thinking, oh, I might be in creative, or we're doing something in tech? So again, I'll take a quick recce just for a couple of minutes. It would be nice to just see what kind of sectors people are operating in. And I'll also open the floor to any questions if anyone's got anything about this initial first step so far. Might have to.
Sorry. Question. Sorry, Neil here. Great to meet you. It's not necessarily my business. I'm involved with the Thames Valley AI Hub, which is connected to the University of or funded by the University of Reading. We have an idea about building a platform to connect industry with academia that would have a kind of, jobs board and be able to connect, speakers and things like that and promote events. But we're looking to build a kind of back-end platform to actually enable that digitally. It's all about, doing good things around the whole Silicon Valley AI hub that Keir Starmer and team are behind. Would that be something that would fall into the Innovate UK territory, or would there be somewhere else where we could potentially look at grants to support this?
You have to think about the underlying technology and what the differentiation is, and ultimately why public funding is necessary. So I'll cover more about this in part. It's kind of part two, but I call it part one. It's a bit confusing. But the next section is on eligibility. So I'll go into a lot more detail as to what makes your project eligible. I guess in terms of a sector, how would you describe the industry that you're playing in?
It's specifically around AI technologies and challenging the issue, I guess, on relationship between university and industries, that the funding models, the strategy, the educational research are moving too slowly to keep up pace with the technology. Um, and, it's to help the UK seize the opportunity to be a leader in the innovation space. But at the moment, there's no platform connecting anybody. So it's not necessarily about the platform itself is fairly straightforward. It's the service that it offers is the
The
one
industry problem that you're
which
talking.
then connecting all the people to go and do all of the wonderful things. But at the moment, they've got no way to connect.
You might want to check out something called Helix, because I'm pretty sure there is a platform which does that called Helix, although I might have the wrong end of the stick. Let's just see. Maybe I've got the name wrong. I can always take your email and come back to you, but someone put this on I hadn't heard of it till 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I checked it out, and they actually had some quite big hitters on board, Cambridge, Oxford, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's not Helix, but it's something like that. I guess what I would say in that space is, and I can I can provide more value on this in the next step, and I've actually created a GPT specifically to answer the question, is your idea innovative enough? Because it's a question that I get a lot. The tool isn't foolproof, but it will give you an overview score based on previous wins and tell you how you can improve that. So I'll give you access to that soon. The main way to think about this is, what is the underlying sort of risk? If it's just a great idea, like Airbnb would not have been eligible for Innovate UK funding. It's not particularly innovative, right? It was just a good idea. And it was at a time in the market when people needed some cash, so it worked. Same with Facebook, right? Now, Meta are doing a lot of innovative stuff now in VR and the metaverse, but Facebook initially would not have been suitable for Innovate UK funding. It was just a marketplace. So a social network. So the way I'd be looking at your marketplace is, if there's no kind of underlying tech that makes it significantly different or interesting, it's probably not something they're going to be interested in. Because the way you need to think about the Innovate UK projects is, would this be something that really enhances the government objectives? You could argue that it is, but that you're going to be going up against projects in net zero, healthcare, quantum, a lot of spaces that the UK wants to be a lot more defensible in. So think about the underlying IP, and if there's not much there, then it might not be the right fit. But I'll send you the GPT, and I'll also speak more to that in the next part.
Thank you.
No problem. Cool. So I can see we've got a few questions in there. I'll try and tackle them at the end. My goal is to get through this now, because I believe we might be able to answer a few questions as we go along. Because as I say, the next one is doing a little bit of a deeper dive into eligibility. And it's right to be asking that question, because there's nothing worse than wasting 40 hours of your life on something that isn't the right fit. So there's 3 core things that Innovate UK look for. There's a lot of stuff, right? But if I had to boil it down to the 3 things that I see in virtually every competition, it would be alignment to the scope. So I'm sure a lot of you heard of Smart Grant. Personally, I don't think they're coming back. I think the success rates were historically low because companies, i.e. Grantify, etc., took a lot of clients on board which really weren't actually that good a fit, to be quite honest. So this led to a complete influx of applications from companies that weren't viable for funding from Innovate UK, right? Doesn't mean they're not viable business models. But I think that's probably not going to come back. I could be wrong, but I think we're going to see a lot more sector-specific competition. So therefore, your first job is to align to the scope. And I've got an example of a competition soon we can dive into to show what that looks like and how you do that. The second one is technical risk and innovation. So there needs to be an element of risk and reward. Innovate UK actually like quite risky projects because inherently, if there's a lot of risk involved, there'll be quite a lot of of IP and ultimately a moat that can be created around that. So having some risk there is actually important. And the last but not least is the impact. So this is obviously quite closely tied to the alignment of the scope, but they'll also look at things that like value for money goes within that. They're also considering commercial, economic things. It's really quite a similar mindset to going for equity investment. You have a lot of similar questions. What's the market size? What's the problem? What's your solution? How are you going to get to market? How are you going to be profitable? So they are looking ultimately to fund sustainable, profitable businesses as well. So I thought we'd just do a quick example and just dive in. Apologies that many of you may have seen this before, so apologies if this is teaching you to suck eggs. But this is a live competition at the moment. We can see it's got a quite clear focus on this project will support UK's transition to zero emission vehicles. So if you're not doing anything in vehicles or the automotive industry, don't apply. It won't be the right fit. But there'll be lots of different other ones that could be the right fit. So this is a kind of TLDR type of criteria that you must meet. So for example, this must be between 500,000 to 1.5 million costs. They will match fund 50%. So that means you're going to have to find the other 50. You need to be at a certain technology readiness level. I'll cover that soon. They have project criteria in terms of how long it can last, when it can start, etc. And this is quite common. Don't get too put off by this. There's a competition that's out at the moment for AI, semiconductors, and a few other things, which is 100% match funded. They just tend to be a lot smaller. So you won't find 100% match funded competition that will give you £1 million, for example, but you might find one that's 50K. So look through these tabs, essentially. It's a bit of a tedious process. I'll quickly show you what we're building here with Grant Hero, which is a tool to streamline this process. So we scrape all of the competitions from Innovate UK, soon to be hopefully a lot of other grants as well. And we have some relevancy criteria. So when you onboard, you will say what kind of sectors you're interested in and what kind of company you have. And we'll at least try and say, hey, this could be relevant for your company. We'd also maybe like to get a chat bot in here soon where you can ask questions around this, because I've uploaded this to ChatGPT and it's quite good in terms of obviously pulling out things. So it can be a bit more conversational than having to, to manually go through and check it. So watch this space. That's not something we're launching at the moment. We don't have a free version of the tool as yet, but I'd like to make this free just so people can at least see, what competitions are out there. So moving on, so finding relevant competitions, I'll give you guys all the slides, so don't worry about taking down the links. I've just linked the IFS website. Innovate UK newsletter is good because it will, again, you can select different criteria, what's your region and industries that you play in, and it will just ping you alerts. So that's quite a good one, specifically for Innovate UK. There are other grant databases, right? So if you have any questions around that, just email me and I can send you a link to a database that covers all grants. And yeah, last but not least, if you're interested, sign up to the waitlist for the product I'm building. So research categories. So actually you saw just then in that other competition, it said specific readiness in terms of a TRL level. TRL is technology readiness level, and they tend to fall into 3 different areas in terms of the fundamental things you're trying to do. So we have research, development, and deployment. I created a few examples here. This was for a longer talk, so I'll just skip to the main bits. But feasibility studies, 70 to 100% funded. For Smart Schedule, which is an AI healthcare scheduler journey for hospitals and patients, just a made up idea. But this would be testing if the AI can actually predict staffing needs and if hospitals want it. So a bit of market engagement, but a lot of fundamental R&D. The industrial research, which could be 70% funded, this is looking TRL kind of 3 to 6. Same project, building a working scheduling system that healthcare professionals can test. So you've validated that your model works, and now you're building an interface around it so you can engage with the market. And then last but not least, experimental development. So they will fund things which are close to market and almost commercialized, but it's typically only 45%. And that will be, creating a proven system ready for commercial adoption. So now you might be talking to multiple NHS trusts, right? And you've got something, there's just a little bit of uncertainty that you need to get over the line. Maybe it's, some of the prompt engineering, maybe it's some of the ways you're vectorizing the database or whatever it may be. But they would fund something like that, even if it's relatively close to market. They won't fund something which is, in market and you just need, marketing to spend. So Innovate UK is not a good fit for projects where there are any incremental improvements. The project outcomes are well known. So I guess it's an inverse of risk, right? You kind of know exactly how you're going to get to where you need to get to. And they don't align with the Innovate UK objectives. So I will, as I say, I'll send you the slides so you can, I think this is hyperlinked, so you could access this here. It's nothing too fancy, but what sits behind this is a lot of projects that have been won. So for example, you could put in the idea that you had, Neil, and it says here, if you save a sector, a detailed description of your idea and how it's innovative, it will give you a score out of 10. It's not foolproof. Please don't come back and sue me if it says it's a good fit and it's not, but it will at least give you an indication of what's been funded in the space, what you can do to make it more appealing, and ultimately where the proposal is going to fall down. And this third part is quite key, right? Like what makes it different or better than what's already out there. Cool. So that brings us to the end of part two. I was going to stop for questions, but I'm aware that we're quite close for time. I can do till around 10 past. So how does it work, Ollie? Does everyone normally drop off on the hour, or is everyone happy to stay for another 10, 15 minutes?
It's entirely up to you, Mark. What I would love to do is ask everyone at this point if they want to raise any questions or any specific things they want to ask you, Mark. So
yeah, I think that's a good idea, because the last one is just around tips, and it's it's kind of, I suppose, transitioning into a different zone. So maybe there's some questions now around eligibility or from what people have seen so far. Happy to cover those.
any questions, guys, for Mark? No, I think we crack on, please, Mark.
All right, cool. Cool. So a few tips on how to boost your chances for success. The first one is to strongly align with the scope. So you can see here I've got a few tips. Again, there's a few bits here because it was made for an hour-long presentation. So this morning I was busily skipping through, trimming down, but I think we can cover them all. So tip number one, read the scope and eligibility in detail, demonstrate how the project fits, ideally using the competition zone terminology. So it's really good to just repeat back. If you think back to that competition I showed you earlier, we will accelerate the UK's transition to net zero emission vehicles by ... right? Make them see within the scope section, which is the first marked part of the application, make them see that you're in scope, because 14% of applications fail due to ineligibility. It can even be silly things like projects not starting on the right date can be ineligible, which is really freaking annoying. It can even be asking for too little money. So make sure you're ineligible, because 14% is significant, and they will look through the top, they'll skim every application before to make sure it's eligible before they mark any of it. So it's a horrible feeling if you put all that work in and you're not eligible. So make sure you align with the scope, make sure you can deliver the outcomes that you need to within the project duration. The second is to demonstrate genuine innovation. So show that you're doing something unique and innovative, show that you've got the potential to transform your sector. It's great to shoot for the sky, shoot for the stars and land on the moon, as they say. If you've got a project that isn't massively innovative at the moment and you're thinking, I could do something right here, whether it's in AI or you want to maybe do something in the VR space, do that. You know, if you think you can deliver it and it's going to make your business more defensible, then that's exactly what these exist for, is to take that leap. So build a compelling business case. So as I said earlier, they are primarily focused on competitions which are going to move into a space of, you know, being a sustainable business, right? Having said that, there are a lot of grants coming out soon for idea stage companies, but they'll still want to know what the market size is like. So I just thought I'd show you guys an example. I think this is an example answer here, but it's a really good one. It's the only example answer I have, because obviously I couldn't run through one for each section. But I thought this was nice, and this was actually for the AI schedule tool that I showed you earlier. So we've got primary markets. Our primary market comprises 217 NHS Foundation trusts, plus 580 private healthcare facilities, managing over 5 million planned procedures annually. So that's pretty good, right? So you're looking at a scheduling tool to manage over 5 million procedures. Okay, cool. I know exactly how many, you know, you're playing with, right? Which is quite a lot. Current healthcare IT procurement shows digital NHS spending on digital is 2.1 billion annually. So decent amount of spending there, right? That's not smoke and mirrors. That's tangible money that they're already spending, which is good. So I won't run through all the rest of these, but you can see the level of detail. And the only thing that this is missing is actually the sources. So they'd like to see, you know, maybe at the bottom you put a few in brackets. I got this from NHS. I got this from Statista. I got this from, you know, wherever. But showing good compound annual growth rate, showing good market sizes. This is all bread and butter, right, when it comes to getting investment. So if anyone's doing private equity investment, you'll need this stuff anyway. But Innovate UK is no different. You know, the people that are marking this, some of them don't know their arsehole from their elbow, to be fair, but a lot of them are pretty, you know, pretty smart cookies, right? And they're going to be looking at this with a lot of through a microscope. So providing this level of detail is good. So hopefully that helps. I'd like to, in due course, have more example answers that I can share with people and they can access via the website, because I think this helps people a lot. But you've only got 4, 5, sometimes 600 words per question. So the most important thing is you make your words count, and this is how you can make your words count. Assembling the right team is critical. Again, this is super important for equity investment as well. A lot of the time, early stages, they're really just backing the team that's on board. The good thing with Innovate UK is you don't need to have them at the moment. So if you want to bend the truth about who you've got on board, it doesn't really matter. As soon as you win a competition, then you can go and hire the people. And it does include labor, it does include subcontractors. So again, you can kind of shoot for, you know, the A team, right? And then you can put the right team in place afterwards. But it's really important to demonstrate that if you need a data scientist, or if you need a you know, an analyst, or whoever you might need on your project, you need someone with skills in manufacturing, etc. Next one's to manage risk strategically. So these are the 4 areas of risk which they'll look at. They will say that in the question, but just to reiterate, it's really important that you mention the risks involved with the project. I've got an example of a risk register again, which is just public access. So people come in here and check this out. You don't have to copy this exactly, but it's just a nice one that works. I've won a few competitions with this, and it just gives an overview of the different risks. So within technical, managerial, commercial, etc. This is specifically for a tech project, so you'd need to align it to your own one, obviously. But hopefully that would help. Right, how do I get back to presentation? It's here, right? Leverage tools and templates. So using things like those appendix templates are good. They can massively speed up the time to get to an application. Within the paid plans at Grant Hero, I give them away for free. So even if you're paying just for access to the product and not a human review, we give you an appendix template for risk registers, project plans, etc. That can be super useful. And last but not least, get the right support. You don't need to pay for just advice in this space. So if you've got any questions when you come away from this, Innovate UK Business Connect are pretty good and can help people for free. And the catapult centers are good as well. So there's catapults that exist for virtually every single technology sector in the UK, or every different kind of industry that the UK government, the UK government want to back. So if you are doing something in advanced manufacturing, there's a huge catapult centre up in the Midlands, but it's just all about manufacturing. So getting in touch with them can be great, because guess what? If you don't have an idea that's that innovative, but you're in that space, they'll probably help advise you on what you can and can't do. And maybe even suggest partnerships with them for Innovate UK competitions, which can again boost your credibility and your chances of getting one. So I appreciate that was a super quick overview, and I sped through quite a lot. I've intended here to just drop a few knowledge bombs, right, with respect to what Innovate UK is, if you should care about it, how to know if you're eligible, and then last but not least, a few tips on how you can boost your chances. So I hope that was useful. Let me know if there's any questions at all.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mark. You're welcome back anytime. Any questions for Mark this morning? I've got one.
Yep.
We come in, we have these weekly calls. I speak to lots of founders. I speak to anything between probably 50 to 70 founders a month. And one thing that's come up is a real sort of malaise around anything to do with grants, particularly at the moment. Can you see that changing, Mark, and why founders should start really focusing on this?
When you say malaise, or do you mean like a bit of a lull or fragment? Yeah. Okay. There is a lull at the moment, and the main reason for that is new government. So we had the Labour government come in, and they've looked at public funding across the board. Innovate UK specifically has been hit with a kind of double lull, because they've just got a new CEO a month or so ago, and he is doing what every leader does when they come into a new senior leadership position, and looking at the way that they do business, right, and seeing how it could be improved. So when I worked at Innovate, there was somewhere between 30 to 40 competitions all the time. There's now only 16, but they have confirmed that government spending in R&D space is going from 20 billion to 22 billion, and they have just released this modern industrial strategy. So I believe that this is the calm before the storm with respect to a lot of these competitions. Now, with respect to the founders you talked to, Ollie, a lot of it really depends on what sector you're in, right? So if they are, I mean, my bag is Innovate UK and UKRI, which is very R&D focused, and that's not going to be the good fit for all businesses, but there could be other grants out there which could be useful. So to your question of should founders care about this, I've got obviously a certain bias to what I know, which is more on the R&D side, but I think, well, I know we're in like a really dead space, right, with respect to private equity. It's not like it was pre-COVID 7 or 8 years ago, and you could raise with very little. So we're in a very blessed space, and it's easier than before to build something and get something off the ground, but it's also harder to get money. So I do think grants are going to play a really big part of how people get businesses off the ground moving forward, because I think, whether it's commercial funds or R&D funds, there's still going to be a need to compete, because there's going to be a lot more noise. So personally, I think they're going to play quite a big role.
Thanks, Mark. Wesley.
Yeah, hi, Mark. I've raised about 11 million through grants over a period of time. Okay. And then the last 18 months, I've had 4 or 5 grants that got within 1 to 5 points in being successful. Yeah. Then I've kicked off over it, because some of it was real cutting edge, totally out there technology, and we met everything. So much so that in most cases, you get the 3 assessors on it. 2 of them always loving it, scoring. You must have been scoring you nearly maximum, and you always get that one that's really doesn't. I mean, we had someone come back and even said that AI was not the future. and how the hell he's scoring an AI application, I just cannot work out.
Yeah.
But so my question really is to you is, on the and you might know, that's why I'm asking you. I've contacted the ministers in government probably for, well, because I've had nothing better to do, actually, to be honest with you, for 12 months, and getting stuff through to them and sort of saying to them, well, what's going on? And they said, well, we're revamping, the smart grant's gone and this is happening and we're doing that. And the main reason is the government said that they've seen that because Innovate isn't the government, as you know, and they said that we've seen that their jobs grants aren't getting given to companies when they should be, and that they're scoring them too low, and there's too many people applying. Well, not too many people applying. There's too lack of finance for the grants. So in comparison to Europe and comparison to North America, you know, Innovate UK is only approving 3% compared to others that are doing 25 and 30% overseas. So we're always up against this problem. Have you heard anything? Because they keep on saying there's all these new grants coming through, but they're supposed to grant replacement to the smart grant. It hasn't happened. They keep on saying it's coming, but you're the first, you know, just hearing what you just said there was very interesting on what Ollie asked you. So I'm really intrigued because I think that the problem with the grant system is that it is possible to do good applications, but the problem is the advisors that are marking it. And from what I understand, that they offer them less money now, so you're getting less standard. And then the second thing is, when are they going to really look at this sensibly from what you've said? Because clearly your software and your company offers a very good package. I was just having a read of it while you were doing your presentation. Because I'm frustrated because, you know, we are so close. And do we resubmit those now? Because I've like Ollie just said, I have lost faith now in grants, because having raised so much, surely I would be a poster boy type of applicant, because we know the way to do it. And I've done it independently. I haven't done it with companies. I haven't paid for a lot of companies to do it. You know, there's hundreds out there doing it. So it's sort of like a multifaceted, it's a weak question I'm asking you, but I just really wanted your take personally as to what you think is going on, because you're closer to it than what I am.
It's really interesting. I mean, I suppose to step back, right, and consider the different investment vehicles we have. If you look at, for example, private equity, now if people got anywhere near the same hit rate going for investment from private equity investors as they do for grants, you know, people would just, it would be the best things in sliced bread. The reality is, you know, you have to send out 100 decks. From that, maybe you get 20 or 30 calls, and maybe from that you get 1 or 2 tickets. So the success rate is incredibly low. Now, what makes it frustrating with grants is the level of effort and time required to put into an application, which is also, it's a very black and white outcome, right? You're either in or you're out. It's not like, not now, but come and see me in a few months. It's like, sorry, you'll have to do a new application in 4 months, which is going to take you another couple of weeks. And to your point, the human element of who's sitting on the other side and marking it is frustrating, but short of having an AI assessor, which I don't think would work, because I think it would ultimately be trained on biases, etc., wouldn't work. So we probably have to accept that, you know, the same people who made the mistake around not thinking Airbnb was going to be viable or not thinking PayPal was going to work could also happen with grants. So that's not the frustrating thing. That's just humans. The frustrating thing is actually the way the system is made, in that you have to put aside so much time of your life to get these grants, and when it's a no, the outcome is like a hard no. So I do believe the system is broken, and I've many times seen an application which splits the judges, and as you say, you know, one person for no apparent reason will just hate it, and that's enough to get you a no. So
and there's no appeal to it. That's the thing, you see. I mean, in our situation, we clearly had someone who either was reading something totally different to what we submitted, or and the last one was a space application we did. UK space. Okay. It was fantastic, and it was actually to do with satellite technology and erosion and everything. It was a very, very strong application, and there shouldn't have been any reason for it not to succeed, to be honest with you. It involved local councils, local governments, employment. I mean, there's so much there. We were just quite shocked about that. But no, okay, I understand what you're saying, and it looks like not much change is going to happen, but
no, sorry, I probably skipped over that bit. I mean, I think that, so there's a video clip which came out of the House of Commons a few weeks ago with the new CEO from Innovate UK who was basically telling some chap that the whole system needs to be rebuilt from the ground up, because he said at the moment ChatGPT can win an application. So he said, I think he was looking at it more from the perspective of we're going to get inundated with applications and a lot of them are going to look quite decent, because if you can put a half decent prompt together and you've got a decent idea, it might be hard to tell, you know, a good idea versus like a capable team. So they might have to do checkpoints to understand like who's behind this, you know, can you actually deliver the project, or
Well,
are you
Mark, that
just
was the funny thing.
band?
Because
Right.
with this application, this was the hilarious thing. One of the things on the personnel side of things, they actually came back to me and said, now bear in mind that I was leading one of the leading AI people in the country in the last decade. And they came back to me and they said, this is with one of my other companies, Mark, by the way, came back and said, oh, we don't think you've got enough AI knowledge or expertise in the management team. What the heck? I developed the first generative AI in the UK. I mean, how bloody stupid could you get? I mean, and it was actually clearly said in the statement. And so we like looked at him and thought, this is just beyond a joke, you know. And I sent it off to the ministers, and they actually came back and said, yeah, it's just not acceptable. But we can't appeal, and that's the thing that frustrates me. So, like Ollie said, it's the process of actually. That's why I think a lot of people, these rumors and stories are going around, and people are like, oh shit, what's the point, you know? But
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
Grants.
and
They're brilliant. I really think they're brilliant.
there's also EIC, and as you say, the European ones are also good. But I do agree with you. There's the way I think about Innovate UK typically is it's part of a wider investment strategy for a business. So it's, you know, I've got very disillusioned with funding from angels as well, as a lot of people have, because that can be very, you know, focused on who's got better connections versus a better idea. So I think there's cracks in different parts, but I do agree with what you're saying. I do think the process of, you know, getting a hard no and no appeal does need to be looked at.
But you see a better future ahead, though. You are seeing, in your eyes, you think, in your expertise, you actually believe we're about to hit maybe it. I won't say tidal wave with what's going on in the news today, but we've basically got that situation you think coming ahead where there's going to be a lot more opportunities.
It depends on what space you're playing in, but I think if you're doing something which is of interest to Innovate UK, then yes. I think we're going to come into a space where we've got new leadership, more money. The government are behind in certain areas, particularly net zero and other bits and pieces. So I think if you are working in these little pockets where you're doing things that they're going to find attractive, they're going
That's
to
an interesting point.
throw money at it.
Yeah, that's really interesting little clue there. Net zero. Make a note of that, Dan.
They will, because they're behind, so they'll think, oh crap, we've got to we've got to meet those targets we signed up to.
Great, thank you, Mark. Thank you so much.
Yeah, anytime. Let's connect on LinkedIn. I'll drop my email into the chat because that's easier than me going to find. Do send me an email, or do connect with me on LinkedIn. And yeah, I've got to jump. I've got another call, but hopefully the talk was useful. Be great, Wesley, to have another virtual coffee sometime. But yeah, good to meet you all. Hopefully it was useful. Perfect. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.